Welcome
to the Bring Me to Life podcast.
It's time to wake up
and shine on.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Bring Me to Life podcast. This is episode 219, and WTF is going on in the world right now. Clearing my throat. Getting that throat chakra ready. Shannon, how you doing?
What up, humans? Thanks for waking up and shining on with us. I'm doing kind of all right in this very moment, but I am here with you on the statement of what the hell is going on in the world. It's been a crazy couple of years, and I feel a lot channeling through me as well as others. And so many people have been even asking me lately, like, what do I feel like is going on as an intuitive person that does channel? And I'm also curious about what you've been channeling and what you feel is going on in the world right now.
Yeah, so this is a hot topic. This is very, I would say, very, people are either one side or the other here usually.
Right. It's something that I have been trying to avoid with a lot of my content lately. And I think it's one of the reasons that I've been, slacking on new podcasts and new content, because it's such a controversial thing. And so many people are stuck in their own kind of whirlwind of what they feel about, vaccines, healthcare, different protests, different, requirements, mandates, masks, no masks. And it's scary out there, and it's very divisive. So I do want to kind of, give a trigger warning that this might be a touchy episode. This is just going to be, us releasing our own feelings and kind of reflecting. Who knows? We may change our perspective. We don't need anyone to come at us trying to change our perspective, but we want to hold space for the community and just talk about some things that have been channeling through our mental space as we evolve through the chaos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I feel like, the government has always tried to divide the people so that they could be conquered. And this is a great example of being able to do that, because even our generation, even people in our circle are very for or very against vaccines and masks. And, there's a lot of conspiracy theories going on about the COVID.
Well, what's even crazier is it's not just our generation anymore, CeeLo. It's everybody. I just recently traveled across the U.S. and I met with an older family member, and she was questioning it. Some of my other more close relatives have even questioned it, and they've even made the statements like, why aren't the younger people rising up? And I kind of thought about it, and I have a few reflections on that I think I'll touch on. But in general, it's divisive across the map. There's no specific age range. There's no specific, like, some people are trying to make it a political battle, but it's not even about that. It's really just a mass form of division in who is willing to listen to the media and who is willing to ask questions for themselves. And even if they ask questions for themselves, some people have such a strong opinion still in either direction that you can barely have a conversation with anybody anymore. And it's causing huge rifts in society.
Yeah, absolutely. And now I'll go on the record and say that I did get the vaccine, the Moderna one. And my decision was based off of things that were going on in my life. And, I physically usually am okay. Like, I don't have a lot of allergies. Actually, I don't have any allergies that I know of. Like, my body can handle things like that. So I made the decision because I was going out into the world. I was working to do that. And
basically, they required it of you.
It was, I would say it was as close as it could be to being required without being required.
I mean, they basically gave you an ultimatum of being able to work with people or not, and that was going to affect your livelihood.
Right.
And I'll go on the record and say that I have yet to get a vaccine because I do have a lot of allergies and my body is highly reactive to things. I'm super sensitive. About 3 years ago, I literally had like a life or death situation happening. And when I was younger, I got a different vaccine that also really messed with my body and my immune system. So I don't want to necessarily say I'm afraid of the vaccine. I don't necessarily trust anything, not even specifically this vaccine, just more so I don't trust my body to take something foreign like that without enough testing. Now, am I never going to get it? I can't really say that either. So I don't want people coming at us or me for my decision, but I also want to say that part of my decision has been seeing friends and family members who did get the vaccine having terrible reactions to it. Now, I know that there's a lot of people who have no reaction to it. Y'all are totally fine. Congratulations. I'm really happy for you. But there are some of us out here who have very sensitive body types, and without enough, testing or feedback, it's terrifying for us to have to consider getting some sort of foreign liquid shot into our bloodstreams. And not only that, but the way that it's being controlled, the way that it's being forced upon us is also very frustrating. And it's very divisive also because, people that used to get mad at me for not getting the vaccine right away because of, my health situation are also some of the people now who are having some of the worst reactions to it.
Mm-hmm. And now they're also kind of like
right.
switching sides.
And I talked to one of my family members today, and I'm based out of Maryland, and one of the Maryland reviews from and I need to check this, so take this for what it is. You can check it. Maybe I'm wrong. But they said 40% of the COVID deaths in Maryland are people who did get vaccinated. So if they're getting vaccinated and still dying from a source of COVID reaction, I'm very confused by the point of this vaccine.
Well, if you think about it, people like me who got the vaccine are kind of like, in the most respectful way possible, lab rats, because it hasn't been widely tested. Like there's not been a lot of time for us to see, what really happens to people with this.
Right.
So it's still like being reviewed.
Right. So in that case, I'm a control group. I'm one of the ones who did not get it to see if I last out here. But at the same time, I've followed, the mask mandates when necessary. I've still tried to, social distance when necessary. Granted, I traveled from Maryland to Kansas City down through Nebraska and came back. We went to Florida and back. And though I did my best to distance and whatnot, there were so many different reactions across the board. Airplanes were still, pretty packed to the brim. Airports, people weren't really distancing or anything. And it's really odd to me because sometimes I'll walk into, a restaurant or a store and almost everybody will have a mask on. And then I'll walk into somewhere like I got pizza yesterday. Nobody had a mask on. Not one person that was working or were walking in there had a mask on. So it's so confusing on what we should or shouldn't do in this reality right now. I feel like I'm playing some weird video game where some people got an update and others did not. And it's like selective too. Like I have a family member who they got vaccinated and they say they don't want to come to certain family events because not everybody is vaccinated, but at the same time they're going to concerts, they're going to work, they're going out and about where there's hundreds of people still. So I don't quite understand. It seems like people are using it for excuses at this point.
I'm sure some are. And
it's just so strange to me how some people are so attached to the fear mindset of it too. It's strange.
Yeah, I would say, over a lot of this stuff, like your thoughts and beliefs have a lot to do with your reality, and and what you experience. So I think that it plays a huge, part of it. Yeah, this is a hard topic. I'm not going to say I'm for or against any of it. I think it's really, it's up to the person on what they feel the safest with.
Right. Same. I'm not judging anybody for their decisions right now. I'm actually holding space for everybody to kind of play their own role in whatever is happening. And I kind of wish more people were willing to hold space for whatever is meant to be for each person. It's just like each person has the right to pick what religion they choose to follow, if any. Each person has a choice to decide, like what holidays. And then somebody might come at me and be like, well, if you don't get this vaccine or you're not wearing this mask, like you're trying to play God or this, that, or the other, like you're not caring about the population. But there's so much mixed review on the news, in the papers, in healthcare professionals. Like doctors and nurses are getting fired because they don't want to get the vaccine. Mm-hmm. These are people who have dedicated their lives to health profession and taking care of people. And if they're questioning it, then of course I want to question it. Again, I'm not going to hate somebody who wants to believe one way or the other. I really dislike when people come at me demanding that I choose a side. I'm a gray area in many different ways of life, and this is another one. But it feels like there's something fishy going on. The way that they're demanding control over it, the way they're demanding paperwork about it, the way that the government can't even make up their mind on what's good or bad across the world, not even just here in America, but this is a worldwide thing. And it does feel like it's pushing us into this crazy world order structure. And this isn't even me being a conspiracy theorist. This is just me feeling from what I've been channeling, which here in a few moments, I do want to kind of switch this discussion to some channeling energy and messages that I've been intuitively receiving that has, maybe pushed me to have this point of view. Yeah.
Before we do that, I kind of want to comment on what's like WTF is going on here. You had mentioned how somebody was asking about, why haven't we rose up already?
Right. One of my family members did say, like, why aren't the younger generations rising up? I want to comment on that too.
Yeah. So recently we watched a movie called V for Vendetta.
We watch it every year on the 5th of November.
Exactly.
Remember the 5th of November.
It's an inspiring movie to me because of what goes on. And without trying to give away too much for anybody who hasn't seen it yet and would like to, it's about a government and something happens where like a virus basically comes out and kills a bunch of people, almost 100,000 people, and then magically, like, the government had this this medicine for that virus, and a bunch of people ended up getting really rich off of that because they made a bunch of money from the medicine that they sold. And the whole movie is about like figuring out like what happened to those people, and it's a whole big thing, and it really blows my mind because I made a post about it and somebody was like, yeah, and it's about like a virus where it was unleashed so that they could get control. Like somebody got elected because of that, like because of the virus, because of like the medicine, the people gave up their rights to this person because they wanted to feel safe. And in the long run, that person just started controlling everything. Like the government started controlling everything. They put up a curfew, and all this stuff happened so that,
which they kind of put in curfews and stuff into effect for COVID too. And they also, controlled how many people could be in certain places, and they controlled how many people could be together for events, and they controlled how many people could get food at markets. And some places the gas situation got so crazy that they controlled what days you could get gas. And it was pretty crazy. Food shortages happened, and like they started controlling how many cans of food you could get. It was intense. Yeah. It's still intense. And I think there's many people who live in fear that it's going to, just massively happen again, and that there's like there are food shortages and things happening right now. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. And the main protagonist, he has so many good lines, and like he's very inspiring, like idea basically. And just one of the things that he says, and it's a quote I think from one of the presidents, and it's like, people should not be afraid of their government. The government should be afraid of their people.
Yeah. I mean, anybody in charge should be afraid of the public. We've even been watching, we've watched the show on Netflix, the new season of Sex Education.
Mm-hmm.
And without ruining it too much, there's like a headmaster that kind of reminds me of Umbridge in Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And like, we haven't watched all of it. And just in general, like, every time I've watched an episode recently, I'm like, F that. Like, if I was one of those students, I'd be rising up, and like, this would not be happening. And it just kind of showed me like how easy it is for people to allow leaders and people of power to tell them what to do, because when somebody rises up against them, other people see what happens to that one person. So they become afraid, rather than standing together when there's so many more of them versus the people in power.
Yeah. Have you watched the movie Ants?
Yeah, a long time ago.
So for anybody who's seen that movie, there's the crickets, basically.
Yeah.
The grasshoppers are like the enemies, but the main one who gets them all together, they're at like this insect bar, and he grabs like an acorn and like hits one of his friends with an acorn and says, "Does that hurt?" Or like, "Are you afraid of that?" And he's like, "Haha, no." And then he unleashed like 100 of them all at the same time, and it just like completely like decimated the rest of the insects. And he was like, "If one stands up, there's not a problem, but you get everybody and they can take us over." It's
true. It's true. I mean, that's what also happened in Harry Potter with Umbridge, and like all the things that were happening with the Voldemort situation too. Like, once all the kids and teachers, professors or whatever rose up, things changed. And I have another perspective of that I'd like to kind of touch on. Now, when somebody asked me why the younger generation or any generation isn't rising up, or why we're not rising up in unison, I channeled something, and it was very kind of shaking for me, because I am in solidarity with the concept that Black lives do very much matter. All lives in some ways do, but lives that have been repressed for a long time, not even just Black lives, any, type of person, whether it's from their identity or their skin tone or nationality, whatever, that has been repressed, they all matter. And we had the Black Lives Matter movement last year, right as COVID was kind of peaking, and mass amounts of people got together, including both of us. We were both there. We both protested in different ways. Mm-hmm. We both wanted everyone's voices to be heard. One of our pillars is equality. Mm-hmm. We want people to feel equal, seen, and witnessed for who they are and what they stand for. But at the same time, there's a part of me looking back at that now that wonders if that wasn't part of this bigger plan to distract us from COVID and to have us all uprising against something else, so that we didn't all uprise against vaccines or freedom as a healthcare industry versus just what Black Lives Matter stand for. And see, that's a touchy thing to say, because it's not that I think those protests shouldn't have happened. They very much were a part of history that needed to be seen, witnessed, and healed. But we also saw how we were treated during those protests. And I think it scared a lot of people. We were being tear gassed. We were having rubber bullets thrown at us. We were having just all kinds of things happening. There were anti-protesters protesting that were blaming other protesters for things. There was a lot of scary things that happened during that. And I think that it shifted people into being afraid to protest. And part of me wonders if that wasn't part of the game, the plan from the unseen forces that are trying to put us against each other, because that was also a divisive thing. Mm-hmm. And they made it a political thing. And we do need to be fighting for freedom. We do need to be fighting for rights for people of all platforms. But that also includes healthcare and the right to choose how we want to live and evolve from this point on. And I think people are afraid after seeing how they protested and how they were responded to for standing up for what they believe in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm trying to think of the other protests that happened even before the Black Lives Matter started, where, it was all about the 1% and the Occupy protests. Those were huge too. And it's interesting because the news didn't really cover a lot of those, those protests and whatnot. And I still think there are around the world. Recently there was one for climate change, but around the world they've been continuously happening where hundreds of thousands of people gather, and a lot of times the news doesn't really cover it. And it kind of
covers what it wants.
It covers what it wants. And, sometimes the news can just be very distracting. It talks a lot about death. It talks a lot about just the most horrendous things possible. And doesn't have that balance, there's also good in the world. There's these people planting trees and regrowing the rainforest and, things like that. I do think that the, Black Lives Matter thing is important because, that nationality has been but definitely been thrown under the bus. Also the Indigenous people,
basically anybody that doesn't have a light skin tone that was born into a stable environment. Yeah, I mean, it's
not saying that people who are white, such as me and you, haven't had a tough time in life, but it's just we haven't had to deal with a lot of the things that
we have a different sort of privilege, and we're aware of it. And I think that's why it's hard for us to talk about these things, because we are aware of the privilege that we've had with our skin tone. And that's why we do want unity and equality for others. Yeah. So if something we say has triggered you, know that we are here fighting for all walks of life, of all ways.
Yeah. I think that goes with freedom of, religion, freedom to, use whatever bathroom, freedom to...
the bathroom thing's touchy for me.
I didn't mean it like that, but it came out, so...
I would like to say that I think that bathrooms should be an individualized space. I don't necessarily believe in public bathrooms, because that's a lot of people's argument on the transgender and the non-binary movements and whatnot. I have somebody, every time I bring up that I feel like people that are transgendered or anything like that should have their right to live a life they want, their argument to me is something along the lines, well, what if you had a daughter and a transgendered person with male-oriented parts, I don't even know the best way to word this, came in and harassed her in some way. I'm somebody who has been sexually abused in my lifetime. I have been cornered in a bathroom. I have been cornered in a locker room. I've dealt with a lot of really heavy things. So when someone throws that statement at me, that does trigger me. Does that mean that I think that those people shouldn't have the right to live a lifestyle of their preferred gender preference that they feel their soul resonates with? No, that's because I don't choose to live in fear. Now, I do think society should make bathrooms and public areas and locker rooms have options for people who are afraid of such a thing to have a private space to, change or to relieve themselves or whatever, so that argument is no longer valid and people do feel safer. Mm-hmm. And those are really important to me, because it's very frustrating when that argument comes up, and I'm somebody who has dealt with that exact situation. And if my daughter had to deal with it too, I would be upset. I want my daughter to be able to use a bathroom and feel safe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel that. And, I think that is important. They're definitely not enough out in public, single use bathrooms or like family bathrooms. I know they do have family bathrooms at like some places.
I think that should be more common. Like, I understand that public restrooms for a long time made sense, and to have a male versus a female, but at the same time, like, family restrooms were invented because my mom died when I was 6. So my dad had to often take me places, and at 6 I was old enough to go to the bathroom by myself, but at the same time there were certain situations where he felt like, you know, he wanted to be able to protect me, or he didn't want to send me into a bathroom by myself, like at a rest stop, you know, where there's lots of crazy other adults or something, and like he didn't feel safe also, or he felt awkward standing like next to a female's bathroom. And one time, like, I was really sick and he had to like open the door and just yell in to make sure I was okay, because, you know, he's a dude. He can't just take his daughter into the guy's bathroom, which he did once. And then I, of course, started asking questions like, Dad, what's these extra things hanging around? You know, like at 6 and 7, it's an awkward thing for like single fathers and single mothers to have to like worry about that kind of stuff with their children. So I think privatized bathrooms and locker rooms and situations like that are the way to go forward. Like single use type utilities are something we might need to evolve back into.
It's the whole thing. I think it's important, but kind of getting a little bit off topic of our episode today.
I don't know. I'm still over here like WTF's going on. Like, even in that space, there's a lot of things going on.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, but I know you talked about the angels before, and like they've channeled through you for kind of like our situation with everything that's going on. Did you have anything like you wanted to add from the angels?
Yeah, so I have been an angel channel for a long time, and sometimes I hide that from the world because it feels weird and overwhelming, and I think people will think I'm crazy. But since I was a young child, I received different channelings from these other type of entities. No, I don't feel like there's like voices in my head. They're just like messages that ring through my heart at a frequency that makes sense, and they have a different energy to them that has helped me over time realize that there's different energies speaking to or through me. And I've been recently working on a lot of angel paintings. If you check out my Instagram, Shantastic Shine, you can see those paintings. But while I'm channeling those paintings, a lot of times I will meditate, or I will hold space for, you know, different angelic messages or channelings to come through. And to some of y'all, you might think I'm crazy, and that's fine. But for me, a lot of things have come through lately, and sometimes I don't necessarily know what to do with them. For example, I channel and talk with Archangel Michael a lot. For those that don't know, Archangel Michael is the archangel of protection and strength, and he is an angel that will shield human energies with his sword of fire, or his violet flame energy. And his message has been a lot of stand strong in what you believe in, hold space for others to find their own path, that the Great Spirit, or whatever we were put here by, has a plan, and that it's important for those to experience their free will and to make their own choices, and to not push an opinion on others. So I'm not trying to push opinions. I'm just trying to share my perspective. But there's also been slight warnings that there is a major shift happening, and that the angels and other entities of the fifth dimension and beyond, for those that don't think I'm crazy at this point, I hope you're enjoying this message. If you think I'm crazy, go to another episode. I'm sure we're not all crazy on all of them. But he says that the angels and other entities that are here to help the human race are doing their best to hold us at a collective vibration so that we can all rise together, and that there are darker energies involved that are trying to split us up, because it holds us in a 3D dimension where we're able to be controlled. And the fact that so many people are waking up to the reality that they can manifest, they can heal themselves, They can, create a stream of abundance without having to be a cog in the overlord machine that the entities to be that are in control of dark energy, or whatever you want to call it, had to find a way to create division within us and to keep us from speaking and sharing these beautiful truths. And it came to me in a lot of alignment with why we were separated, and why there was supposed to be 6 feet apart from us, and why they didn't want people communicating. Because why is it right when the New Age movement, which part of me hates using that phrase too, because it is becoming kind of cult-like, but right when everyone starts doing their self-work, starts talking about shadow work, starts talking about, creating personal rituals and understanding spirituality versus intense organized religion, and like finding their own path, all of a sudden there's this thing that just hits the collective to break us all up and to keep us from sharing community together and being able to see the magic in the world, as it was starting to get pretty active for so many people of all different generations and walks of life. And that kind of shifted over to a channeling that I began working with some of the other angels. So I also worked with Raphael in Metatron, and began to kind of tune into even a newer angel that I've learned and connected with called Sandalphon, which is apparently very connected to Metatron. So Metatron is an angel that works with time and space, sacred geometry, bringing desires to the forefront, and helping align time. And he's also known as the keeper of the Akashic Records.
What?
Which, if you don't know what the Akashic Records is, that's another thing that is becoming rather well known in the collective. And it's basically the concept that all memories, timelines, and experiences are kept somewhere in a somewhat heavenly-like library. For a lack of a better way to explain it. It's just this portal in space, time, continuum, whatever, that holds the different timelines. That's why so many people are starting to wake up and be curious about such things, because there's stuff like quantum healing and holographic healing and Akashic healing and hypnosis therapy, and the concept you can reprogram your brain. And what people are doing is they're working with a fractal of Metatron, whether they know it or not, to heal different parts of the timeline. There's people that are meditating and going back into their past and visiting with a fractal of their younger selves and reprogramming how experiences happened for them so that they can heal and they can evolve and not live in grief or trauma. And this concept has become more and more popular. And as soon as it's starting to peak and more people are starting to understand that they can change these timelines, both past, present, and future, there's again this radical explosion of chaos, COVID chaos, mass chaos, protests, and beyond, that have started to try to keep people apart again, trying to keep people from even having sessions with others that have unlocked these different practices and understandings. And Metatron is also connected to sacred geometry. And there's recently been a huge push of sacred geometry out into the collective. People are wearing it on their clothes. People are putting it in logos. And these are people that don't understand what these symbols even mean. But
what are the numbers?
No, the numbers. How many of you out there have been seeing 1111? Like 20, 30 years ago, people weren't talking about 1111 and 222 and 333. And, maybe it's because digital clocks weren't an active thing. I had somebody say that on one of my platforms. They were like, if there were angels talking to us through numbers, then why wasn't it in the Bible? Well, they didn't have digital clocks back then. So they probably weren't seeing the numbers 1111, and they probably didn't have the same number system. They used different forms of calculations and understanding of those things.
Mm-hmm. They had like the those one things that you could move down.
Right. People were seeing burning bushes, and they were seeing certain symbols, and that's why certain hieroglyphs and things have certain symbols and experiences that they were seeing in synchronicity. And another fun fact is Metatron and his brother Angel Sandalphon were actually mentioned in different religious texts as Elijah and Enoch, because they had human lifetimes and they evolved and ascended into what we now know as archangels.
Yeah.
They had
keys of Enoch are like ridiculous.
Well, Enoch is supposedly Metatron, and Elijah is supposedly Sandalphon. And what happened is they basically ascended into angelic form into the fifth dimension. I probably sound crazy to a lot of people at this point. That's okay. These are things
not
that help.
Not as many as a few years ago.
Yeah, not as many as a few years ago. These are the type of things, though, that keeps me more grounded in this reality than you would think, because it gives me some hope for this world that we're not here alone and there's an energy out there that's helping us. Mm-hmm. And angels have helped me through the darkness since I was as old as I can remember. My first time experiencing a connection with an angel was when I was about 4 years old, and my life changed. And they consecutively have come back to me, even when I tried to, not believe in such things, to give me warnings of things that were happening, people that were dying in my life or something I was going through. So, of course, I needed to find ways to connect with them again through the chaos of these last couple of years. So, that being said, Metatron has been trying to channel through the collective with these sacred geometry messages, because its energy knows that there is a possibility for the world to end as we know it. And I think in a lot of ways, the timeline that some people thought, quote unquote, was normal has transformed. There is no old normal. There never really was a normal. It was a perception of reality that has now been shaken to its core as a collective. And what Metatron is now trying to do is find a way to collectively rise the vibration through the division to bring us to a space where we can all work together again and to stand strong in our ability to have free will. So Michael fights to protect us and talks about free will a lot in his channelings, but Metatron is really powerfully in the energy of free will. And he works in a way that he wants to bring our desires and dreams to the forefront and to activate people's passion. So I personally find it really crazy that as soon as he started putting sacred geometry out into the collective powerfully, there was an uprise in entrepreneurship. There was an uprise in people wanting to not have to work for a system, not having to work for, quote unquote, the man or for someone else. And they started actively going at all their passions, from coaching to yoga to different outdoor experiences and all kinds of things. People just were activated to follow their passions and desires in whatever it is. In recently connecting with Sandalphon, I found out that he is the angel of fulfilling wishes and desires. So he works with Metatron in a way that he can fulfill the energies that are in highest alignment with the collective. So one of the ways to connect with Sandalphon, go figure, is to light a candle as you make that wish. And once you have set your mind on that wish very intently, to blow it out or to put it out sacredly. Sounds an awful lot like a birthday wish, huh?
Sacredly by like one of those things you could touch on it, or like licking your fingers?
I like to lick my fingers and do it in a safe way. Mainly because once upon a time, a mentor of mine told me that blowing out candles was not the most effective way. To me, I thought I was using the air element, but they say to do it in other ways. I don't know. To each their own. I'm not here to tell people how to do their practice.
Yeah, I think what matters most is how you feel.
How you feel, and that you do it safely. And I think more so what matters is the intention of lighting and igniting that fire, and then giving it up to spirit and putting that energy out so that it can be handed over then to the angels, to spirit, to your mind, whatever, to help bring it into your reality. So I haven't got a whole lot from Sandalphon other than that. Still working on that energy. Powerful new energy.
Seems like a decent amount for right now.
Right. I do want to real quick talk about Raphael before we wrap up. I don't know if you are ready to wrap up, but I think this Raphael channeling is important to the earlier message.
Yeah.
So Raphael is the angel of healing. He's an angel that I've worked with for a very long time. He often comes in energy forms that are very green or yellow and healing and loving. And as this COVID situation has arisen, I've connected and asked, should I get the vaccine? What's going on with this vaccine? What about all the healers out in the world, the doctors and people that are against it and things like that? And something that came through was very interesting. And I might have some backlash for this channeling. But Raphael's energy spoke through me and said, you realize I tried to prepare everyone for this, correct? And of course, I mentally responded, well, what do you mean? He said, do you realize how many Reiki and energy and other spiritual healers have been activated in the last decade? Basically, the last couple decades since the last pandemic happened. There has been an uprise in all kinds of energy and body workers. And I said, this is true. I don't know what's happening over there. Powerful channelings coming through here.
I actually have a meditation I got to do soon.
I know, that's why I want to wrap this up.
All right, let's wrap this up.
But what Raphael said to me was, I've been trying to prepare the collective for this uprising. The angels have been trying to prepare the collective for this uprising. What is happening is there are too many human egos being blocked or being overpowering and not seeing how they can truly help people, because they think that they are the source of the healing and that they alone are able to be the healers, when really it is them tapping into the collective source. And not enough of them have made a decision on standing strong in the belief of the collective healing and rising. And so many of them are distracted by making money, or distracted by feeling like the all-powerful guru or the all-powerful healer, that it's taking away from the movement of holding space for the collective to heal. Now, I'm not saying that energy workers shouldn't be paid for their services, because it's an exchange of energy. I actually believe if you pay an energy healer or worker or Reiki practitioner, whatever, that you will get that money back tenfold, because you are acting as a conduit for the universe to help activate both financially and energetically and emotionally the rising of the collective. But it really shook me when Raphael said that too many of the healers are stuck in their ego. And, there for a while, I thought I was one of them. I still question it. And I think the fact that if we question where our ego is, that shows growth and shows that we're not stuck in it, because you do wonder, am I on the right path? It's those that think that they can do nothing wrong that scare me, and that I think Raphael is referring to. And it is interesting to me, the rise of the healers and the gurus right before this collective pandemic happened. And I'm not really sure what to do with it. I'm still out here going, WTF is going on. But the angels are coming through, not only me, but so many people. And I've been really afraid to even publicly talk about these things. But I think I've hit a breaking point where I'm like, okay, I know I'm not alone. I know I'm not crazy. I know others are receiving these messages. And so many of us just have to stop being afraid and opening the lines of communication to ask, what are we doing here? And how can we wake up, and how can we shine on again?
Mm-hmm. We have some work to do, but I think that what's happening is a sign that we're getting close. Like, the fact that all this craziness is happening so intensely means that we're close to raising that collective vibration to a point that we can all call in a better world.
I think the better world is on the way. through all the different angelic channelings I've been processing in my own time, it feels like there's no stopping the new world from coming. We are rising to a different vibration. Some of us may feel stuck in a lower vibration, but there's power in numbers. There's power in a voice, and there's power in voices that don't cause more division, but instead ask questions and hold space for each person to grow at their own pace, and to at the same time stand strong against being forced in any which direction, because each person does have free will, and we were put here as souls through some higher energy to experience what is happening right now. And it's up to us to really, figure out what part of history we want to be in and how we want to respond to the situations at hand.
Yeah, I think this is a very heavy thing for a lot of people to listen to. And kudos to anybody who has listened to this entire episode. That's a very, something we're very grateful for the ears, being able to express these channelings that have come through and be able to share how we feel. And hopefully it helps, some people in some way.
Yeah, I'm not here to trigger people, but I am here to make people think. And I'm grateful if you've made it this far. Feel free to join us in the Bring Me to Life community on Facebook. I would love to connect with more of you. You can find both of us also on Insight Timer, doing meditations. And yeah, until next time.
Stay awake.
Shine on always. For many of us, spirituality is just the quest to find essence or true meaning, and to really just connect with a higher consciousness.
Connecting with your spirituality is very important in this life. By becoming mindful of all of it, you can realize where you are and if that is leading you to where you want to go.
Listen to the little simple things, because it's those little simple things that are going to shift you vibrationally in such a way that will prepare you to become very intuitively minded and ready to step forward on the next part of your path.
I hope you can feel the love that's inside you, it's inside me, that connects us.
Thanks for shining on with us.